If you're a musician who's trying to start a band, trying to get gigs, trying to release music, and trying to build a fan base, pick up a copy of the Musician's Map audiobook. If you're not a musician yet, but have goals to be one, this book is for you as well. It outlines every step in the musician's journey, from active listening to learning an instrument to recording, touring, and making money as a musician. If listening to me talk at you for over 4 hours doesn't sound like your cup of tea, there's an ebook version as well. You can get both at musiciansmap.org/books. Hello and welcome to the Musician's Map podcast. I'm Kane Power. In the short history of this podcast, I've already talked to some amazing people who have shared an incredible wealth of knowledge, insight, and experience. This week, however, I'm talking to someone who is a household name in New Zealand, and a little bit of a hero of mine, and probably to many of you listening as well, Paul Martin. Paul has been a guitarist and vocalist for quite a few well-known bands, including Blackjack, Nightshade, and World War IV, and currently plays bass in alternative metal band Devilskin, who have 2 #1 albums, a host of high-profile shows and sold-out tours, and just a week ago won the New Zealand Music Award for Best Rock Act. Paul is sponsored by Dean Guitars, Skull, Strings, Sennheiser, and Laney Amplification. Not content just to be a rock star, however, Paul is a champion of the New Zealand rock and metal scenes, often promoting and supporting local and unsigned acts among genre giants on his hugely influential radio show, The Axe Attack, one of the longest running rock and metal radio shows in the world. I met Paul many years ago while I was playing in one of these local bands. He played our songs on nationwide radio, he booked us to play shows, he paid us fairly, and he even had us open for his band, World War IV. He supported us when we needed it, something he has done and still does for countless New Zealand bands. He's been an essential figure for generations of Kiwi metalheads, and to top it all off, he's a super nice guy.
I was 5 years old when I heard Louis Armstrong playing trumpet, and it just rocked my world back then, you know. At that age and growing up from then, I was listening to the music that was on the radio and the music that my mum and dad were playing. So there was everything from Elvis to Howard Morrison, and you know, I loved the old rock and roll stuff, Rock Around the Clock, all the 50s rock and roll. Happy Days used to be on TV a lot. So, you know, all that sort of rock and roll music really buzzed me, and it just made me embrace music. As I got a little bit older, my older sisters were listening to Led Zeppelin and Uriah Heep and Deep Purple and stuff like that, and I got a glimpse of this power that's coming out of these tiny little blimmin' radiogram speakers, you know, but just these songs were just captivating, and I got a taste for it then, big time. I played trumpet when I was 12 or 13, I think, for a year or two. I actually got quite good at it, and I found it a lot easier than I find guitar or bass. But we shifted after that. My dad used to work for the post office, so we moved around a lot, and then we found ourselves in Wellington, and all of a sudden we're in a built-up area, so for me to practice trumpet, the whole street was getting in on it, you know, and I kind of got a bit embarrassed about it, and the school didn't have an orchestra, and I was kind of by myself, so ended up picking up a bass guitar and bullshitting my way into a band called Tyrant, and I didn't know how to play a freaking note, man. Tune it, nothing. Yeah. And I just blagged my way in there, and we had such a freaking great time. It was a cool band. I ended up swapping the bass for lead guitar in that band, and stayed with guitar for decades up until Devilskin, where I've switched back to bass because we couldn't find a bass player, you know.
Was that the
Oh, I was just filling in, yeah. I was just, I've got a bass, so we can jam, you know, I'll just fill in on bass. And it felt good and it felt right, and my whole perception of the band right from the very beginning was that it was a 4-piece, you know, one guitar sort of thing, and it's kind of just evolved how it is now, and I'm really enjoying playing bass again. Yeah, you know, I don't consider myself a bass player as such, you know, but I love it. I love what what we're doing and what I can do. You know, you can punish people with a bass guitar.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, it's great. And getting the opportunity to play with my son Nick on the drums, you know, it's pretty damn special. So yeah, haven't really looked back. You know,
What was it about hard rock and metal in particular that kind of got your attention, and what was it that appealed to you?
I don't know. I guess looking for that edginess. You know, it wasn't called edginess back then. It was just called cool or whatever. There was something mysterious about this music and the power and the darkness and stuff like that went with it. My brother brought home a copy of Black Sabbath's Greatest Hits, and it's got that Peter Bruegel painting on the cover, the Triumph of Death. And wow, I thought, man, skeletons like just annihilating the earth and fire and beheading, and oh, this is mad. Wonder what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I chucked it on, and the first track I heard was NIB, and I was sold. That's me, man. And like to this day, Black Sabbath's my favourite band in the world still, you know. But it was just the darkness and the heaviness and the scary factor, really, you know.
Yeah. So kind of some of the imagery as well as...
Yeah, definitely. You know, the imagery is all a big part of it. And, you know, as much as I still love the Chuck Berry and the Blueberry Hill and all the old rock and roll stuff, there was something about this genre of music that was just exciting and dangerous. So I just, gravitated towards that.
Did you find that in other like close sort of genres like punk or hardcore as well?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, I actually discovered punk before I discovered metal. And I was hanging out with these kids when we moved to Wellington in the fourth form, and at high school, and someone brought along a Ramones record, and bam, I loved it. Absolutely loved the power and the rawness and the attitude that came with it. So I was heavily into the Ramones and Sex Pistols, the Dead Boys, Stranglers, big Stranglers fan, and probably as a bass player, one of my very first bass playing idols was J.J. Burnell from the Stranglers, who I was lucky enough to get to see in Auckland last year I think it was, and still absolutely brilliant, 67 years old, the top of his game, still doing flying scissor kicks over his mic, you know. Well, he's like an 8th Dan black belt something or other anyway. But yeah, Stranglers, and you know, the power and the truculent bass playing that he had and his sound, that, you know, changed my world. And all the stuff shaped me. And then when it came to Black Sabbath, it was like, oh, and I loved all these different bands, and I still loved old, you know, Bill Haley and the Comets and the Rock Around the Clock stuff and all that. So I've always had really, really diverse tastes, but I guess my main passion has always been the heavier stuff.
Yeah. So how did you get started in radio? What sort of...
purely by accident, yeah. I was playing a Nightshade at the time, and Contact FM was the local student station here, and we went up for an interview with this guy who just started this heavy metal radio show called The Axe Attack, and his name was Johnny Brooks. He was the first DJ. The show was started by the station manager at the time, Max Christopherson, who's still on radio. But yeah, Johnny had just started doing this weekly show, and we did this interview, and, you know, me and him just got on famously. He was just the man. We had exactly the same record collections just about, so it was, we just hit it off and went out boozing and stuff like that, and one day he says, hey man, you should co-host the show with me, you know heaps about the music. I went, dude, like radio people are all dicks, aren't they? You know, let's be real here. And he goes, but it's student radio, man, so it doesn't matter. And I just went from there. I co-hosted the show for a couple of months with him, and then he left the country, and his girlfriend Anna took over his part, and then she left, and I've been doing it on my own for I don't know. But the show's in its 30th year now, so I mean, whoa.
What about the show do you think made it so successful?
The longevity I put down to, you know, just the honesty of the music itself, the genre of hard rock and heavy metal, and the fact that people that like it generally don't tend to swap fads, and you know, they're not into the image thing of, you know, the whole trend. You know, they're not going to instantly ditch all their Iron Maiden and Slayer albums because they've heard dubstep for the first time, you know. So people that like that music are generally pretty loyal to it.
Yeah.
You know, people that have been fans of AC/DC and Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin for 30 or 40 years are still their biggest fans, you know.
Yeah.
So, I put it down. It's not because of the fantastic DJ. It's just because the music's freaking powerful, and it's got that loyalist blooming connotations to it, and it's like glue that keeps everyone together. And the fact that mainstream radio is so lame, so absolutely blooming banal these days, that if people want to hear this sort of music, then they have to tune in here and find it. That's their outlet for it. So, it's great having that platform, and I'm stoked that it's been around for this long. I'm certainly, I've been this passionate about it since day one, so it's special to me. But being able to turn people on to music, and knowing that, I'm the only one, well, you now, or whoever's listening, but I was the first person in the country to play System of a Down.
Yeah,
and broke them and thrashed them when their first album was getting ignored here. And there's a whole bunch of bands where I was playing them months before they hit the shops and stuff like that, and turning people onto them. Disturbed's another band that, when someone sent me their first album, and I just went nuts on it. And you couldn't get it here for ages after that. Mudvayne, same thing,
Yeah.
And so I was really excited about this new stuff and happy to have this platform where I could introduce people to this new music.
You've introduced people to obviously tons of music, and there's a huge Axe Attack following, and I mean we used to have parties for the Axe Attack,
cool.
And get together because that's when you could hear cool new music, and often bands that you'd never heard. What is it? But you've kind of gone a step further, and you've been a champion of local acts as well. It's how you found Jenny. It's
it's all a natural progression because there's a lot of great music getting made in this country by hard rock and metal bands, but it's really hard for them to get any outlets, any funding, any sort of help. It's hard enough to get gigs, being hard rock metal. So there's all this music, all these other bands that I was playing with in various other bands, and we'd gig with these guys, and, they'd record a song and go, dude, give me your cassette tape. I'll put it on air. This is great. People need to hear this stuff. And, I always thought, well, New Zealand's got its own Megadeth. We've got our own Slayer. We've got our own blah, blah, and blah, blah. We've got bands that are our version of those things. We should be embracing them as well as loving Iron Maiden and Slayer and all the rest of it, but we should be embracing the bands that we've got here and helping them carve their way as well. And, the whole scene's always been kind of set up to make it harder for bands for some reason. So any little small thing I could do to help, I did, And you mentioned Jenny from, when she sent me her first demo with Slipping Tongue, she was 16, and it looked shocking. I opened the package and all this broken plastic fell out, and it was like, it wasn't presented the best, let's just say that. And so I put it in this pile. Okay, I'll listen to that later pile. And a couple of weeks later, I felt guilty. I thought, shit, man, they've gone to all the trouble to send me this CD. I should listen to it. And it was recorded terribly. But when this voice came in, I was just about to push stop, and this voice came in, and it was 16-year-old Jenny. And holy crap, I just got goosebumps on the spot, and I went, man, this is something special here. This is the X Factor that everyone talks about. Yeah. Long before the TV program, of course. I put it on air, and I probably shouldn't have.
You did play it.
Yeah. And the band got buoyed by that, and they did some more recordings, and they got better and better, and they did an album which was freaking amazing. And I got involved with one EP with production for it and stuff, and I just wanted to do my best to encourage them because I thought they had something really special. Yeah. And like Wellington band Chicane, there's Cripple Mr. Onion from Christchurch originally. There's all these bands that I was really enjoying, and I just wanted to be able to share them with people. And it just, once people hear them, they like it. But it was really hard back then, no social media, so it was really hard to try and get people to find out about bands and things like that. So the best weapon you had as a band was to have a good recording, and hopefully someone out there would play it. So
what is it about a certain band? What jumps out? I mean, in this case, it was Jenny's voice, and she certainly has got X Factor, but...
Yeah, but on that early demo, it wasn't her range, or she wasn't like singing spectacularly. There was just something that you can't put your finger on. It's just that X factor, and every now and then there's one musician, like, for example, Jenny, who's outstanding like that, and you go, wow, I have to watch this person. And I watched her for years, and then when she didn't have a band on, I pounced. Wow, what are you doing? Why aren't you playing in a band? You know?
Yeah.
You got to play with someone your dad's age. And, you know, just went from there. But I've just done my best to try and encourage, you know, so many of our cool artists to keep going. Being in a band is no picnic. It's a hell of a lot of fun. It'll be the best days of your life, but it'll be also the most stressful and the toughest. And you've got to juggle jobs and paying your rent and your bills and employment and bloody relationships, as well as egos and everything that goes with it. And you know, my hat goes off to anyone who can get a band and get out there and gig. I remember Wayne Elliott, before I joined Nightshade, the singer of Nightshade, was talking to me. I was still playing in Tyrant in Wellington. And we were a bit of a shit band, but we had a lot of fun, and we just felt great because it was like our little 4-man army, you know. And Wayne said to me, he says, man, if you can get a band going, you know, like get all 4 people in the same room that want to play the same music and they're all as passionate about it as each other, he goes, that's a huge accomplishment, man. That's massive. But he says, if you've got that and you've also got people wanting to come and see you play and coming to pack out the rooms and stuff, he says it's damn near a miracle.
Yeah.
You know, and that's stuck with me all these years. You know, it really is. It's such a juggling. It's all so fragile, and it's just got to be maintained. It's like you're balancing plates and riding a unicycle when you're on fire, and there's a flood coming, and it's just mayhem trying to be in a band. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
You know, you've done it, and it's you know, when everything lines up, it's beautiful, but it's not easy, and you know, bands need all the encouragement that they can get. So if I believe in their music and think it sounds great, and you know, there's a lot of stuff I play in the X-Attack local stuff that might not be my cup of tea, but these bands need a push and they need help, and they've got friends that want to hear their stuff as well. So you know, it's not about me; it's about doing the right thing by the bands and giving the people that are listening to the show what they want.
I think what you said before about how, you know, it gave Slipping Tongue a boost to hear them on the radio. I think that's part of it as well. It's a huge. I remember hearing Blacktooth on the radio.
Yeah.
No, man, I helped write that song.
Yeah,
you know?
man. I mean,
like,
what a buzz.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, I was in Nightshade and we couldn't get any traction with any radio stations anywhere, maybe a little bit of student radio, but not much. And then I remember going to Kiwi FM. It was in Hamilton here, 898 back then, I think they were. And went in there with our we'd got our most commercial song and recorded it, and it was called Out for the Count. And we took that up there. And here's a song, it's radio friendly as, and they go, we don't really play Kiwi music. Why not? We just don't. We don't, nah, it's not very good.
But we're in New Zealand.
And I was like fuming. It's like, your name is Kiwi FM.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that was just the way that radio was, and it wasn't until Grant Hislop started The Rock here in Hamilton that things really started to change. And he championed Blackjack back then. He heard a song, and you know, legend has it, within 20 minutes of him getting a cassette on his desk, he dubbed it onto a 1/4-inch tape and stuck it on air.
Oh yeah.
You know, he just loved it and believed in it that much, and that's what it's about, you know, because there's so much great music out there. It just needs to be shared.
Yeah.
You just need to hear it. And, your band's going to feel freaking great when you hear yourself on the radio, and it's going to drive you to want to do more things and, you know, try and keep it all going. It's just a very small part that I can play to try and keep these bands motivated and continuing to do what they do, you know?
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned before how you were kind of watching Jenny for a few years and seeing what she was doing, and then noticed she wasn't in a band. Is that how Devilskin formed? Yeah,
definitely, yeah.
And what sort of, can you maybe outline a bit of the journey that you guys have had? 7 years, you say you've been together.
Yeah. She was pretty burnt after the Slipping Tongue album because the band had sort of flown to pieces, and she was left with a bill, and she was, you know, she'd split up with her boyfriend at the time who was in the band, and so she was just in a bit of a dark blooming spot and wasn't really interested in being in a band. And once we all sort of got together and talked about it, you know, we just agreed to a jam. And it was famously me going, okay, I'll just play bass for this one jam then, right? And that first jam we wrote Little Pills. Noel already had the riff.
Your first jam?
Yeah, Eddie had it, and he'd taken along to his previous band, and they laughed at it, didn't like it. Nah, it's rubbish. And Jenny just jotted down some lyrics to it, bang, that was Little Pills. And we also wrote Fade right on the spot, and another song that we still play live called Until You Bleed, a big, fast, thrashy one. So that first rehearsal, we knew there was something cool and something special going on, and it just all sort of came about. The songs came out really organically, and, you know, it was easy. After that, we just went out and gigged, and as more people came to the gigs, we'd spend that money on production, and so there's a couple more lights this time, and we'd get to the gig like hours early, and we went out and bought all this red leather at one stage and all this red material at another stage, and we'd dress the stage up so it looked different, you know?
Yeah.
So people would walk in and, holy crap, your stage looks like the inside of a uterus, you know? It's just this whole red thing just to make the band a bit more visual. And, you know, the production was always really, really important to us. So you had to have a good sound system, you know, and you had to have a decent light show and front lighting and all these things that it's easy to cut corners when you're in a band because of expense, you know?
Yeah.
So we just sucked it up and just spent every penny that we had on making the show better and better, and we're still doing that, you know? You've just got to you get a bit of momentum up, you've just got to keep it rolling, but you've also got to reinvest in what you've got to make it bigger and better all the time.
Yeah, and you guys didn't, I mean, you'd all been in other bands.
Yeah, and, you know, we're all fans of each other's bands as well. We all knew each other, you know. Nail and I used to bump into each other all the time, and we'd go see Jenny's band play, and, you know, Jenny had done gigs with World War IV, and, you know, we'd all sort of play together, so we're all big fans of each other's music. So, you know, when it was like, Jenny's not doing anything, we're going to have a jam. Well, I'm in, you know. Yeah. Let's do this.
But you guys started up playing local shows. It wasn't like, now we're a sort of super group and we're going to just immediately start, you know, playing these massive shows.
No, we opened up for quite a few bands. One of our first shows, definitely our first show with Nick, I think it was a Battle of the Bands in Morrinsville, and then the next night we opened up for Sinate in Tauranga, and a tiny little pub with no PA and no lights, and we've been there, done that, and we've done lots and lots of shitty little gigs. We opened up for I Am Giant and got blooming treated like mud by them, and now they're opening up for us at Homegrown. But, you know, that's the way it is in those days. You got to prove yourself as a support band, you know, and we just wanted to get in front of their crowd or their management, and, you know, like, you just do whatever you can to get there, and we definitely didn't think we were a super group or anything like that. We just knew we were having fun making music, and let's go play some gigs, man, you know. So it was never, we're going to be all this and we can only do big gigs and stuff like that. And, you know, we busted ass trying to get onto the blooming Homegrown lineup for years and years and years, and got turned down, and now we're headlining it. So you know, you just got to hang in there and stick with what you're doing, and once the people, the promoters and everyone else see you doing well, then they'll take a punt on you, you know. Yeah, it's an interesting thing too, once, you know, now that Devilskin's in a position where we've got some traction, some momentum and profile and stuff, it's really, we're getting offered endorsements all the time, you know. Oh, you guys, you know, use these guitars, use these amps, use this and this, and it's like, man, when we needed that, no one would give us anything. Yeah. But you can understand they're not going to give some band who's struggling, who might just fall over tomorrow, you know, $5,000 worth of bass gear or anything like that. And, you know, it's this conundrum that bands are in, because every band needs help to get to the next level, whether it's cheaper strings, whether it's, you know, a loan amp from a shop or whatever like that. We all sort of need to get to the next level, and all those little things that can help you only become available once you're already sort of halfway successful. What was the point where, because, you know, it sounds like there's a bit of an upward trend, right? And the more successful you get, the more opportunities are presented to you. Because, as you say, people can see your record and they can trust that you're good, and you have fans. Was there a point where things sort of changed? Yeah, definitely. It was weird. We played in Christchurch and we did this show for, I'm wearing their T-shirt, Waghorn Brothers Builders down there, and they do this Wagstock every year, and they have bands play out in this big paddock. And we'd been down there once, and they'd seen us play, and you know, thought, oh, you guys are great, you know, come down again, and we'll put, you know, get you guys to play at Wagstock as well. And I was like, hey, how many people are you expecting? They went, 500. Well, there was, I think, about 15 or 1,600, and it was in a paddock, and it was like pretty feral, but it was just a big boozy party in a paddock. And I think that was the first time I noticed that people were just making a fuss for Jenny. There was no backstage area as such, and so we just sort of parked our van on the side of the stage and looking over, and then people started nudging each other going, hey, that's the band. And it was like a zombie movie where all the zombies are walking over the hill together like, Jenny, Jenny. Like, we had to chuck her in the van and drive to the other end of the paddock. And we had like chicks hopping in the van. Jenny, I just want to touch your hair. And what? All of a sudden things are just, it's bizarre. And we played in Nelson around about the same time, and it was the first gig where we thought, we can't walk through the pub, hang out in the pub before we play now. We've got to be out the back or hidden because people just grab us, especially Jenny. But, like Niall and myself walking through the crowd, and someone's drunk auntie grabs your blooming goatee and rips you off. Hey, you can't, here's one of them,
look at this.
over there. And it's like, okay, it's really cool meeting all these people, but it's just chaos for us before a gig. And so, things started changing. And on that tour, we had to invest in crowd barriers at the gigs, which are really freaking expensive, but you've got to have them if you've got crowds,
Sure.
Otherwise, they just rush the stage. So, it was the South Island that really, where we all sort of took a step backwards and went, man, things are changing. We pulled up to one gig in Christchurch, and it was like this massive queue, and I thought, oh, Jesus, Briscoe's must be having their end-of-year sale or something,
Hold on.
Oh, we're screwed, Yeah. And it's our crowd, and it's, unbelievable, and it still freaks me out, and I still, like, giggle like a child every time I see a queue at our gigs. It's like, what are they here for us? This is mad, It's crazy.
At what point did you decide to do your own label and kind of and release your records on it?
Basically, we knew what we wanted to do and what we wanted to record, and we knew it was a significant amount of money. And so we actually got a deal from a major label, got offered a deal, and it was, just a joke. I said to them, we could maybe do a 3-track EP with this, but we certainly can't do an album. It's, And the deal was all wrong. They would have owned the majority of the rights to, or they would have owned all the rights to the songs, and 80% of whatever came in. So it was a bit of a crap deal. So all these bands that jump up and down and go, we've just been signed to blah, blah, this major label, 9 times out of 10, they're getting such a crappy deal from them. Yeah. It's heartbreaking. And, they're going to lose control of their songs, and the labels don't have to quantify what they're going to invest in your band in the way of marketing or anything like that. So they could, we'll put your record out, but they're not going to put out any ads for it, and so no one's going to know it's out. And there's all these things that come part and parcel of it. So it's basically, if we want it done right, we have to do it ourselves. So we just saved, and we were it was the last album to be recorded at York Street Studios.
Oh, really?
We Rise, and we did that with Clint Murphy. And then he went over to the UK, and we ended up doing our second album with him over there and recorded over there. But it was, we wanted to do it our way, and we didn't want to assign our rights to anyone else. It had to be ours,
Yep. What about management?
That was really tricky in the very, very early days. Like, it's basically Niall and myself were handling everything, and we'd applied to New Zealand On Air so many times for funding, and like 6, and just been shot down every time. And then I knew a couple of people in the industry that I wanted to see us, and one was Jerry Lloyd, who used to work for Warner and EMI, and is a good mate from way back, and he saw us and goes, James Southgate needs to see you guys. So what I want you to do, he's in Auckland, pay for him to get the best hotel you can, pay for him to come down and put a gig on and make a freaking spectacle of it, get him treats and just make him feel special. Yeah. Send a car for him if you have to, do whatever. Put him up nicely and show him your gig. And we did that, and he basically signed us on the spot, did a management deal. Wow. And then he got the same song that I'd already submitted twice to New Zealand On Air and had shot down, and bang, straight through. It was the same entry form, but it had his name on the bottom. And so I don't know how. honestly, I just don't understand how those things all work. But the fact is, when we were just a bunch of bogans from the Waikato trying to push our barrow, no one wanted to know about it. And you get someone who's already entrenched in the industry because, James managed the Feelers since year dot, and he ran Warner Music, and he's had quite a bit of experience with labels for years, and he knows how the business works. And I really don't. And the longer I'm in it, the less I find I know. So it's all about getting the right people on your side and that know how to work the system and how to work the industry, and they'll get listened to because they're not that metal guy from that rock station, he's just Mr. Metal, and we're not even going to listen to it because it's probably screamy, bangy, loud stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all about just having the right people working on your behalf, and, hats off to James. Holy crap, we wouldn't be where we are now without him and his hard work, and he really works his butt off, and he works us really hard. But without a good manager, man, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Do you think that the success you guys have had is a result of your kind of cumulative experience, or do you think that a new band could kind of achieve something similar, if they haven't been in bands for years?
Oh, definitely they can. I mean, it's, what I mentioned before about being in a band, how it's a fragile juggling experience, it's the same thing. Just because we're experienced musicians, we've learned it, but we know how not to be dickheads around each other. We know that it's really important that we're all honest and pushing in the same direction and doing stuff like that. But, I mean, we see new bands pop out of nowhere, and for whatever reason, they get noticed, obviously I don't mix a lot in the hip hop scenes or at all, but this band Swidit that smashed it at the VNZMAs the other day. I'd never heard of them, and they just popped out of nowhere, but they've got all the support behind them already, and it's as far as I know, a new band that's just popped up and are doing everything right for their genre and smashing it. So, there's bands that are definitely out there doing it. As far as the hard rock metal stuff goes, not many, if any, because there's just no opportunities for them. But the hip-hop market is obviously a lot stronger here. And so bands can pop up out of nowhere with no experience or whatever. But again, it's just it's a beautiful collision of all the right things going right for them. It's it's a lot of hard work. Well, on our part, we work hard. We don't ever take our foot off the throat, and we can't relax for a minute. You've got to keep reinvesting in the band. You've got to keep putting your energies in it, looking to the future. Where do we want to be? What do we want to achieve? And who are the people that we want on board? So it's you're constantly striving. You can't relax at all, but you still need a lot of luck, and you need a lot of discipline, and you need money behind you, which either if you can't earn yourself or whatever, then the band's got to go out and sell a crap load of merch, and we sell a lot of t-shirts, and that's really helped us get overseas, and it's helped us make our albums and things like that. So there's so many different features that go to getting a band anywhere, and any sort of modicum of success that you might achieve is all down to, like I say, this beautiful collision of things going right for you. But we know so many very cool bands that have fallen over, and they might have had the next biggest freaking Smoke on the Water track or whatever, but for whatever reason, the drummer's just had a kid and his wife doesn't want him to do gigs anymore, or bass player's gone to jail, or someone's got a freaking habit or something like this. For whatever reason, you can't get that group to stay together, and things fall apart, and it's just such a special event when a band actually gels, feels good, love each other, and go out and be successful, so my hat goes off to any band that can make that happen. But I don't understand why. It's just all sorcery to me, and it's a lot of luck, and it's a lot of tenacity on my part. That's why I'm here. I mean, I know just about every musician I know is a better musician than myself, and it's not about how great I am on the bass guitar or anything like that. It's just us writing the right songs that hit people and appeal to them, and to have people come up to you in the supermarket and want a selfie because they got married to one of your songs, or they got your lyrics tattooed on their arm, or it's really freaking special, and you can't take you can't take anything like that for granted. You can't expect it to be there tomorrow. If it's still there tomorrow, freaking bonus. But you can't expect this just to keep on just happening. You got to keep working it and make it happen. You can't be an arseless. Another thing that Wayne Elliott from Nightshade told me, you can't just go around as a band on tour and wreck hotels and party and destroy things and leave a trail of children and broken hearts everywhere and shit like that. You gotta focus. You gotta treat it like real life and treat people with respect. And I'm constantly blown away when we play gigs and I see people singing the words to the songs, not just the singles but the album tracks and stuff like that. And that to me is just such a huge reward that it just makes you think every time, man, this is really special. We've got to nurture it and we've got to continue doing what we're doing and taking the time to meet the people who go out and buy our t-shirts and records and come to our shows and interact with them and get to know them, because we've met some freaking amazing folks and it's just the whole buzz of being in a band. And it might all fall over tomorrow. You just don't know, but you just got to make the most of every opportunity, every moment you can. And if you can inspire people with your music, that's the purpose right there. It's the coolest feeling in the whole freaking world.
Amazing stuff. That's your lot for this week. Thank you so much to my guest, Paul Martin. Hopefully I'll have him back one day. Tune into his radio show, The Axe Attack, 24/7 on iHeartRadio. You'll find a link in the podcast description. Also, check out Paul's band Devilskin at devilskin.co.nz and facebook.com/devilskinnz. Make sure to give them a like on Facebook and go see them live if you're in New Zealand. Paul's choice for this week's Artist of the Week is Seas of Conflict. Seas of Conflict are a progressive metal band from Hamilton in New Zealand. I hadn't heard them before Paul recommended them, and I've got to say, they are absolutely incredible, and I'm loving their album Vestige, so check it out if you lean towards the heavier side at all. Go to seasofconflict.bandcamp.com and facebook.com/Seas of Conflict. This podcast and my site musiciansmap.org is dedicated to sharing knowledge and advice about music and the music industry. It's all about community, honesty, and positive progress. My experience and the experience and advice of my guests is yours to learn from. Make sure to check out the Musicians Map ebook and audiobook about building success in music. You'll find it at musiciansmap.org/books, Amazon, and Audible. I've also got a free ebook, How to Get Your Music Heard. Go to musiciansmap.org/free-book to get your copy. If you have a suggestion for the podcast or for the YouTube channel, or you just want to get in touch and say hello, please do so via the Musicians Map Facebook group or by email at kane@musiciansmap.org. I love hearing from you guys and I always respond. Thank you so much for listening and stay positive.